naming any names.
Welcome to Leaping Larry's Revolutionary Reading Theatre.
Okay, before we start, I do just want to remind you, before we start this read, I do have a Twitter post that if you do happen to be on the Twitters, ask that you consider sharing it for me, if you would. Exactly, even Lennon took time to enjoy chess and cats. And cats. If you happen to be on the Twitters, if you could share this post for me, just asking for any help people might want to send us for trying to get our oil tank filled for the winter, would be greatly appreciated. It's got our thing linked down here, and all the information is in the tweet. So if you feel like sharing my info, see if we can get any help getting this oil tank filled, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Hey, Chi-Chi, welcome in. Great to see you. And that was Ultra. Sorry, I closed that quickly. And this is Ultra, the original Ducky. She's the sweetest duck. Isn't she? We don't have the Drake anymore. The Drake is no more. Hate the Drake. The Drake is gone. The Drake is done. It's over for the Drake. How much does filling the tank cost? Around like 700 thereabout? Yeah, this duck is just cute as fuck with no effort involved. She's a beautiful duck. She's a beautiful duck. Alright. I got my coffee a little late, so we're going to be doing the reading right now. And just give me 1 second because I have to make one little edit here for y'all. Okay, Nightbot, I need you. we need to change one of these commands here right quickly. We need to change this command. Where are you? Reading. Oh. We're reading this now. There we go. This is what we're reading now. Can't put another colon. There we go. There. Submit that. And now if you type in reading, there you go. You get a link to Lainie's thing while we're reading this in here. So if you want a link to what we're reading, hit exclamation mark reading, and there you go. You'll get a link to our comrades' Zine for yourself to read. Hi, Bugga. Hey, look who these folks. JFK Rodden, Karos Rev, Leaping Larry, who the fuck is that? Lesbian Hot Sauce, Levelhead, and Maple Tags. I don't know. I'm kind of sussed out by this Leaping Larry. I don't know if I can read this now. There's some sus character involved with this called Leaping Larry. I don't know about this now. What do you think, comrades? Alright, Chapter 1, Introduction. Why we need decolonial feminisms in this moment. And our outline is the introduction. Palestine is a feminist issue, reproductive genocide 101. Ramifications of reproductive genocide in Gaza for women and children. Reproductive genocide, women in Gaza do not lack access to health care. Complications from malnutrition, biopower, and necropenology. Palestinian women's role in the resistance, journalists and academics being arrested and murdered as of September 13th, pinkwashing and purplewashing, and lastly, intersectionality, post-colonial, and radical black feminisms. I get all kinds of weird shit with my bitrate on Twitch near a riot. I don't know why. Well, we'll find out when we get to it, won't we? Where'd this be? I don't know. We will get there and find out. Probably not today though, because that one's right at the bottom. That will probably be on our second or third read. Introduction: Why we need decolonial feminisms in this moment. This is a quote from Fatwa Takan. My sister, our land has a throbbing heart. It doesn't cease to beat, and it endures, the unendurable. It keeps the secrets of hills and wombs. This land sprouting with spikes and palms is also the land that gives birth to a freedom fighter. This land, my sister, is a woman. Unquote. Women are the connective tissue of the most irreducibly basic manifestation of every genos, Greek word for family or group. Whether it is due to their prescribed social role as mediators or nurturers, every ethnic group, religion, or nation cannot exist without a cohesive will among the women in these spheres of society. While genocide is always a crime against humanity, the lasting effect of such crimes, in any capacity, resides in its ability to fundamentally undermine the women and people with uteruses in oppressed groups. The all-encompassing tactics of reproductive genocide used by the IOF against Palestinians are designed to ensure that the violence has multi-generational effects. The same mechanisms of genocide are being used from Palestine to Turtle Island to the Congo and Sri Lanka. Zionism, the ideology, an ideology, by the way, based on settler colonialism, nothing to do with religion at the end of the day. It's just a thin disguise veil. Zionism, the ideology behind this entire genocidal project in Palestine, is a fascistic ideology. Fascism has a deep preoccupation with the reproductive power of the citizens within nations, both as a force to empower themselves and to disempower the other, quote unquote. It weaponizes reproduction in its nation and targets reproduction in others, or within its nation's outgroups. Israel claims to be a beacon of democratic values, yet fails to charge 92% of sexual assault charges, regulates bodily autonomy to termination committee, quote unquote, and offers asylum to sex offenders and violent criminals. The United States itself recognizes the widespread sex trafficking cases in Israel. Media sources report that human trafficking is a serious problem in Israel and that thousands of women are smuggled into Israel and sold into prostitution. From the BBC, 24th of March 2005. The government of Israel does not fully comply with the minimum standards for the elimination of trafficking. Israel still lacks a national task force and an official coordinator for the government's anti-trafficking efforts, as the government failed to fund such a position. In 2004, the government investigated 602 cases relating to trafficking for sexual exploitation and handed down 28 convictions. U.S. Department of State, Trafficking in Persons Report, June 2005. The facade of Israel's so-called Western democracy is a pink-washing, purple-washing campaign which seeks to sanitize the genocide of Palestinians through empty promises to offer women and marginalized groups their fundamental human rights. Perhaps the most detestable of all the lies are the fabrications of mass rape narratives against Hamas, the Palestinian resistance in general. This disinformation has been used as a justification to escalate the genocide in Gaza. The struggle against rape culture has always been a primary concern in feminists worldwide, and this narrative, which has been debunked, was deliberately crafted to redirect feminists from supporting Palestinians towards supporting Israel. This perversion of feminisms in the service of state violence is especially repulsive in light of the extensive reports of gendered assaults done by the IOF. When Palestinians, men and women, and gender nonconforming peoples experience sexualized torture, rape, castration under interrogation, certainly that is a human rights violation, but it is also gendered and sexual assault. Thus, Palestinian liberation must certainly be embraced by anyone who believes they are a feminist. Otherwise, feminism is hollow of any attention to material realities. Nada Elia, greater than the sum of our parts, feminism, internationalism, and Palestine. And this is why, of course, so many people, so many organizations and groups have literally called out the fact that, like, the white feminism that abandoned people of color and colonized people, in the suffragette movement and other things, is not real feminism. It's whiteness. There is an inherent contradiction in a religious ethno-state, which also claims to be democratic. For example, queer couples do not have full marriage rights. The state claims to allow 98% of the abortion requests submitted, yet the Jewish extremist factions of Israel want to remove bodily autonomy from Israeli women. As with Christianity in America, the principles of religious institutions are often distorted in service of capital. The oppression of women via exploitation of unpaid reproductive labor is the driving force of every neoliberal capitalistic economy, and religion provides the alleged justification for such gender-based servitude. When the internal contradictions of capitalism become too dissonant, religion steps in as a moral justification for women's perpetual underclass status. As such, women are obliged to reproduce the next generation of workers and ease the burden of their husbands' reproductive labor. In both Israel and the United States, the socio-demographic profiles of abortion supporters and opponents have been rather similar and stable over the last 25 years. This may point to the stable patterns of religiosity in both societies, since anti-abortion sentiments have mainly been fueled by religious fundamentalism, regardless of formal denomination. Emma Hitzroni and Larissa L. Reminick, Public Attitudes Towards Abortion in Israel, a research note. The legislation of certain populations' reproduction was also seen in other fascist experiments such as Nazi Germany. Abortions were not allowed for Aryan women, quote unquote, but allowed and encouraged in populations considered non-Aryan. Or in Franco, Spain, where leftists were arrested and had their children taken away to be given to Christian conservative families. Zionists have even targeted Arab Jewish families in transit camps, kidnapping their children so they can be raised by Ashkenazi European Jewish couples. Israel has also conducted mass sterilization campaigns against Ethiopian Jewish women and destroyed the only IFV facilities in the occupied Palestinian territories. Much like America's historic mass miscarriageation laws, which were only overturned in 1967, or modern forced sterilizations of tens of thousands of women in Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) detention centers. By the way, these forced sterilizations still go on today in Canada. These systematic abuses are aimed solely at subjugating and erasing certain populations. Gabriela Salas, A Brief History of Sterilization Abuses in the U.S. and its connection to mass alleged ICE mass hysterectomies in Georgia. Canadian government, our National Healthcare Service still forcibly sterilizes First Nations women constantly here. I mean, they claim that they're investigating and trying to get rid of it, but it still happens every day, so I haven't seen the proof. The Israeli state weaponizes the facility of gender equality with the specific purposes of providing diplomatic cover for its war crimes. On February 21st, the Israeli Minister for the Advancement of Women made a ravenously genocidal speech in the Knesset, giving her full-throated endorsement for the bombing campaign in Gaza. I am personally proud of the ruins of Gaza. And that, doesn't Canada also push poor people towards getting themselves euthanized? Yes, it's called the MAID program. Yes, they do. Especially if those poor people happen to be native or, colonized people of any type. Racialized, whatever. I'm personally proud of the ruins of Gaza, this person says. And that every baby, even 80 years from now, will tell their grandchildren what the Jews did. We are not ashamed to say that we want to see Israeli soldiers, the holy heroes of ours, catching Yahya Sinwar and his terrorists by their ears and dragging them all across the Gaza Strip on their way to the dungeons of the prison authority, or in the best scenario, to a coffin. Palestine Chronicle staff. I am proud of the ruins of Gaza. Israeli minister tells Knesset. That's settlers. I'm telling you, settlers in the US and Canada, they still talk about native people just like this. If you look hard enough, you don't even have to look that hard. Settlers still fucking talk like this about native people here. That a minister for the advancement of women would make such a murderous, depraved, heartless statement is emblematic of Israel's insidious hypocrisy. And actually, a good thing to point out right here is everybody's favorite one, you know, everybody's favorite, speaking of fake feminism, everybody's favorite feminist judge, what's her, Ruth Gins, what's RGB something, what the hell's her name? I can never remember what her full name is, but she is RBG, yeah, Ginsburg, that's it. Ruth Ginsburg. She is so deeply genocidal towards native people. Not just in her rulings, but in her outright rhetoric. All you have to do is find anyone that is trying to build something or buy up native land, and this is how they talk. Absolutely, Bob. And like I say, even like I say, the white fake feminist icon, Ruth Nader Ginsburg, was fucking horribly racist towards native people. Horribly racist towards native people. Not just in many of her rulings that materially harm native people, but also in just her outright rhetoric. Just in case you wondered, like, if that's just a feature of settler colonialism. Right? Because settler colonialism, of course, relies on genocide, which, as our comrade Lainie has been pointing out in this, has to target women, has to target uterus havers in order to target the next generation, in order to accelerate genocide. That a minister for the advancement of women would make such a murderous, depraved, heartless statement is symbolic of Israel's insidious hypocrisy, while women several miles away are forced to watch their children starve to death. This woman has the audacity to say she is proud of the leveling of entire cities. Clearly, she is only concerned about the advancement of certain women. The occupation weaponizes a sanitized construct of safety, literally bulldozing Palestinian bodies to clear land for settlers to occupy. The indiscriminate killing of women and children, more than any recent conflict, does not make anyone safer. Women and people with uteruses are giving birth, including C-sections in Gaza, without anesthetics. Chris Brown, Mohammed El Saif, women in Gaza giving birth without enough painkillers for clean water and food, is cited here for that. The complete destruction of hospitals has had a catastrophic effect on women in Gaza, including, but not limited to, the decimation of all obstetrics and IVF facilities, subsequent maternal and infant mortality, and unmitigated starvation. Hopefully these links aren't fucking too... Oh, I knew they were gonna break. Wild, because you copy it from this and it'll still fucking break the link on you. Sorry about that. The same reactionary neoliberal genocidal leaders are removing our bodily autonomy at home, or at best failing to codify our rights into law. Wapaluwala, U.S. Supreme Court declines to review Texas emergency abortion case. Any pretense that either the US or Israel government upholds human rights is a complete farce. Therefore, this moment requires that we prioritize global feminist, anti-capitalist solidarity. Our governments only seek to serve the capital interests of military industries, which means we have to topple American imperialism from the inside in order to achieve liberation from Turtle Island to Palestine. There's our introduction. What do we think so far, comrades? We'll read the first chapter as well. That way we're introduction and the first chapter. Morning. Complainie Lainie. Ink and coffee on paperboard. What the hell? Damn. You're putting artwork in this too? That is fucking awesome. Everybody, let's see those Stalin applause for our comrade, please. I want you to fill up my chat with Stalin applause emotes, please. That's this is fire, Lainie. Just from the introduction alone, incredible work. Really well done. Okay, we don't want to just do the introduction though, so we're gonna do chapter 2 as well. That way we're doing the introduction and the actual first like chapter of the material, and then we'll do another 2 chapters next time. So, chapter 2, Palestine is a feminist issue. Reproductive Genocide 101. Impact of Israeli occupation on women. Women, mothers, and babies are killed by the IDF. The complete blockade on food and destruction of water supplies directly kills newborn babies through forced malnutrition and dehydration. Men and boys are all targeted as if they are all members of the resistance, leaving widows and orphans. Without non retired or non school age male partners or relatives in the household, they become the sole income earners. Gender wage gaps are exacerbated by these circumstances, aggravating the financial instability of the surviving Gazan families. The killing of young men, besides reducing the population's combat capabilities, may also be a strategy to reduce the population's replacement rates. Of course, the reproductive genocide has a compounding effect on Palestinian women. Pregnant Gazans are the decisive actors within Gazan family-based groups in terms of where to go. Women took an active role not only in maintaining households or shelter spaces, but also in feeding the family, comforting children, and hosting displaced persons. In terms of coping strategies, women focused on playing with children and providing a comfortable atmosphere despite the difficult situation. Women initiated conversations with women in shelters for entertainment and to reduce fear. Some exercised, choosing to walk in shelter spaces to reduce stress and anxiety. Girls utilized their hobbies to cope, including writing scripts and novels, journaling, making small videos, and turning to their parents for material and moral support, while others chose to participate in psychosocial support sessions to talk about their experiences during the escalation. United Nations Beirut Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia. Social and Economic Situation of Palestinian Women and Girls, July 2020 to June 2022. Because women are organizing structures of the family, the presence of a pregnant person will make these groups need to seek the nearest hospital. With the destruction of the Gazan health system, this means fleeing the enclave. In previous crises, and throughout the past year, the women of Palestine have organized themselves to share resources, various labor roles like makeshift agriculture, childcare, and teaching. Women's production committees have worked to provide care, address gender based violence, and peace building. UNESCWA, this targeting of central facilities, in turn, is congruent with the interest of Israel in displacing as many Gazans as possible. The occupying forces claim that Israel is a beacon of democracy and freedom, especially for women and queer people. Meanwhile, the state violence affects those people the most. Women and queer people are discriminated against by the state, both Israeli and Palestinian. The IOF is extremely ruthless in its gendered violence against all Palestinians. Pregnant people are suffering complications exacerbated by the forced starvation and bombardments, which in turn affects their children when they are at most vulnerable. Worse still, they cannot seek care as every hospital is destroyed in northern Gaza, and the remaining few in the south are only minimally functional. In the face of unimaginable loss, mothers cannot even have a place of burying and mourning their martyred children. And the IOF had never been shy about their outright murdering of pregnant women. See this horrific image of a crosshair painted on a pregnant woman, 1 shot, 2 kills. Which, if you ever seen Abby Martin, She was on the street and saw this shirt firsthand as well. People wearing this fashionably. San Diego Union Tribune, August 29th, 2016. Israeli soldiers' t-shirts depict shooting Palestinian pregnant women. As intersectional feminists, we recognize that reproductive justice and liberation are not complete until we stand up to our government, which is guilty of committing reproductive genocide abroad and at home to black, brown, and indigenous people. None of us are free until all of us are free. And may I just add to this that if you are not an intersectional feminist, if you're not a feminist, you're not a communist. So, sorry, see you later. Reproductive genocide. Israeli citizens, including those calling themselves leftists, organized demonstrations where they overtly advocate for Palestinian citizens of Israel to at least wear a condom, as seen in a report by Abby Martin from Empire Files. When asked about these words and their sign, they would explain that these would ensure that they don't make too many babies. Once again, reproductive rights are at the crosshairs of a fascist ideology such as Zionism. The obsession with certain demographics' birth rates is fundamentally racist and supremacist. This supremacy is foundational to Zionism and has always been woven into the legislature of apartheid. Reproductive genocide refers to the policies, discourse, and practices that delimit, restrict, target, or diminish the life-giving capacities, choices, access, short-term health, long-term health, and life changes of vulnerable communities. These outcomes are perpetrated by military occupation and systemic violence, besiegement, settler colonialism, and or imperial warfare. And even colonial healthcare institutions, again, like in Canada, where they forcibly sterilize First Nations people. I imagine that it happens in the States still too. My focus has always been when it comes to that stuff Canadian law, so I would have to look, but I imagine it still happens in the States too. Which is what's wild when the NDP tells us that they're for, like, protecting people's reproductive rights here. It's like, are you really though? Like, you want to lead a system that continues to allow this stuff to happen. You've never presented any concrete evidence of wanting to end that, or like any concrete steps, or even any like hollow slogans of wanting to end it, really. Yeah. ACP, fucking anyone who's disillusioned by the ACP, just know that if you are not a feminist, you are also not a communist, plain and simple. If you're a dogmatist, you're not a communist, plain and simple. If you think that baristas cannot be proletarian, you are not a communist. If you think that unproductive sections of labor cannot be proletarian, you are also not a communist. Again, I direct you to the hammer, the sickle, and the brush. That is the Juche symbol. Because what we learn through experiences of revolution is, and what the importance of intersectionality is, that in order to actually determine which rank somebody fights for, whether proletarian or bourgeoisie, it's not enough to go by their class origin. God damn it. I'm a mess. It's not enough to go by their class origin. I gotta change my shirt because I just spilled coffee on myself. Look at me. God damn it. I knew this would start happening on stream soon. My messiness is starting to show forward. Don't worry, I will watch it. It'll be good. But yeah, that we can't just go by someone's social origin. Like, their social origin can give you a good idea about, what section that they're gonna fight in. Like, if somebody's petty bourgeois, they come from like a petty bourgeois thing, you can get an idea. If they come from working class, you can get an idea, but you can't go by that alone. You have to consider you have to consider all these other intersections of oppression, like, for example, like feminism, for example. Is there a gender oppression, or or um the relation to colonization? Because now, if you're, like I constantly remind people, if you're examining a petty bourgeois small business owner handicrafts person, your analysis of them is inherently going to be different if they're a settler handicrafts person small business owner, or a colonized person, and then what their experience is, why they're in that, so on and so forth. You judge people not by their class origin. We determine whether they're in the proletariat by what ideology they have. And how do we determine what ideology they have? Sure, what they say can give us some hints, but it's what they do, their practice, and how their practice coincides with their slogans. As Kim Jong-un has said. Okay, 1 second. I gotta switch my shirt right fast. I'll get a black shirt because that way you can't tell when I make a mess. Class consciousness, not class origin. Yeah, exactly, Dorian. That's the most important thing, is the class consciousness, not class origin. There. Now if I spill coffee on myself, you won't know. No one saw anything. Reproductive genocide broadly includes mass incarceration. Yeah, I'm allowed to show my nipples. I'm man presenting, everybody. According to according to Twitch, speaking of feminism, according to Twitch's fucking gendered apartheid rule system, I'm allowed to show my nipples, but not people who I guess present themselves as women. Whatever the fuck that means, by the way. Present themselves. Like, okay, what the fuck does that mean? But that's a whole nother conversation, I guess. Reproductive genocide broadly includes mass incarceration, psychological warfare, collective punishment, gendered and sexual violence of women and girls by occupying state force, gendered and sexual violence of men and boys by an occupying state or force, forced conditions of unlivability, and imprisonment and bodily desecration for the living and dead. Evidence in Gaza. Control and cutting off vital life-giving sources such as water, fuel, electricity, and food. Denial of life-giving and life-saving medical resources. So does that mean I can show my nips on screen? I guess that depends, Radispy, if Twitch determines whether you're male or presenting or not. Whatever the fuck. That's what I say, whatever that means. Because it's like, doesn't that mean that if you're non-binary, or you say that I go by she pronouns, that won't matter, right? What matters is whether Twitch determines that you're presenting, or whatever the fuck that means. That's what I say. It's inherently a transphobic and like an apartheid, anti-woman, anti-trans fucking rule that they have. See, so that's what I say. So I would have to imagine that Twitch would get and but see, that's why I'm saying. Yeah, I could not show them because I'm trans even prior to HRT. Yeah. But see, but here's where the problem is, right? Even what you say that you identify, whatever you identify as, whatever you are, is not what Twitch goes by. That's not what they go by. You could have whatever you are in your bio and say, like, I go by she pronouns or whatever, but that won't matter. You could say I go by he pronouns. that technically doesn't matter. What matters is if Twitch decides whether or not you are male or female presenting, according to their rules. It's based on male gaze rating. Exactly, GMO. Yeah, exactly. Literally. That is what it's based on. So the evidence in Gaza of this going on here. Yeah, exactly, Nurai. Exactly. All while pretending to be like a safe space for people who are targeted by gender-based violence. Like, no. No, you're not. You literally have transphobic fucking rules in your thing over fucking nipples of all things. Sorry, just Jesus. It's a whole thing. You can have all of the violence in your video game you want, right? You can examine the blood in your video game up close. You can play like visceral cleanup detail. You have to clean up all the blood. If there's nudity in your video game, which now happens even in M-rated games, which are allowed on Twitch, the way they do it now is say that if you spend too much time, quote unquote, on the scene, whatever that means, if you spend more than enough time to just get through the scene that there's nudity in, then you could be banned. Like, what the fuck does that mean? So you gotta be careful if it's a like exploration game and there's nudity in it. You gotta be careful not to explore too much in the area where there's the nudity. It's silly. Yeah, they could have had a no nipple rule, but nope, it had to be transphobic. Exactly. It's one or the other. Nipple or no nipple. Pick one. Control and cutting off vital life-giving sources such as water, fuel, electricity, and food. Denial of life-giving and life-saving medical resources. Collective starvation. Murder of elderly men and elderly women. Eradication of entire genealogies. Mass murder of women, children, babies, pregnant women. Mass execution of vulnerable civilians, such as those seeking shelter. Separation of families, mass detention, incarceration, and torture of men, women, and children. Obliteration of medical institutions. Mass destruction of schools, places of worship, homes, and residential spaces, or domicide. Shelters for vulnerable communities and cemeteries. Annihilation of environments and life-sustaining agriculture, including harvest destruction and vital food infrastructures. Mass exposure to life-threatening toxic waste, unsanitary conditions, and or hazardous environments. Environmental degradation, resulting in infertility. Illegal use of chemical weapons on civilians, especially those in captivity, impacting the health of future generations. Collective starvations and prolonged endangerment of women, children, and babies. Prolonged conditions of collective capacity, including besiegement, devaluation of life through public dehumanization and calls for genocide. Assault on dignity and life. Conditions that have created polio returning to the strip, a virus that kills around 10% of sufferers and disables up to 50% of those whose disease progresses to the CNS. Palestinian Feminist Collective condemns reproductive genocide in Gaza. The mortality rate for acute paralytic polio ranges between 5 and 15%. The paralysis can progress for up to 1 week. Permanent weakness is observed in 2/3 of patients with paralytic poliomyelitis. European Center for Disease Prevention and Control. Disease fact sheet. Free Palestine. Complainie Lainie. What the heck? Another piece of art here by Complainie Lainie. Oh my goodness, comrade. And then that leaves us out for the second chapter there. I'll leave this up for you all to look at for a bit. Look at this. Lainie, oh my goodness, comrade. This is incredible work. Very, very, very well written. Yeah, it's oil on canvas, pup. This is oil on canvas. This is incredible. That is incredible painting. Wow. Really good work. Lainie sleeps like me, Sue. Lainie sleeps like me, Sue. Lainie needs to give an artist badge on her own channel. I would I the thing is I would give her one for my channel, but I'm all out of artist badges. Sadly. I think. Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, I've reached the maximum amount of artists. Fuckers. Beautiful work. Beautiful work. Yeah, you're like me, Lainie. My sleeping patterns are very erratic, and oftentimes I don't see. It doesn't seem like I should be getting enough sleep, but I mean, I was up in your stream last night. I was gonna get on voice with y'all, but that joint just kicked my ass. I could not get up out of bed, and then Bug was laying on me, so I wasn't gonna kick Bug off me. Yes, everyone who has the artist badge on my stream has made art for the stream. Yeah, Bug takes priority. Bug and joints. The combination of Bug and joints, right? Okay, I'm gonna leave this up here. Okay, I'm gonna read you a little thing here. I woke up at 4 a.m. and saw Larry still in Complainie Lainie's chat. Yeah, I was up late. That's why stream was about half an hour late getting started this morning. By the way, apologies for that. This is a traditional story of Glooscap here. This is recorded. This is written down by Ruth Holmes Whitehead, but this is an oral story. I know 5 artist badges is weak, very weak. Hey Barry, welcome in. Okay, so this is the story of Glooscap, which is a great muntu, which is like a great muntu is a very big, like, you know, like a spiritual creature, something that help creates the word, like almost sort of like a god, but not really exactly. And really, and Glooscap was put here by the creator, which this does mention briefly. Glooscap is a great muntu. He has power, but there is a greater muntu, and that one is Khaji Kanap, the greatest of the Muntuk. Khaji Kanap made Glooscap. Khaji Kanap made the world. Khaji Kanap is making the world. He makes the world, and then he takes a rest, lying on the ground, looking around to see what he has done. And there on the ground is a stone image. It looks like a man. Khaji Kanap speaks to it. What are you doing here? He asks it. But there is no reply. A second time, he speaks to it. What are you doing here? But the image says nothing. What are you doing here? Says Khaji Kanap for the third time. But that stone, which looks like a man, makes no sound. So, Khaji Kanap does a thing. He breathes into the image. He blows his breath into the image's mouth. And the stone man comes alive. Khaji Kanap says to the man, "Sit up." And this man sits up. Khaji Kanap says to the man, "Stand up." And this man stands up. Khaji Kanap says to the man, "Walk." And he walks. "Stop," says Khaji Kanap, and this man stops. Khaji Kanap names this man Glooskap, liar, the cunning one, and gives him work to do. He tells him to take his bow, and with it to clean out all of the muddy running waters. He tells him to take his bow, and with it to clear a passage, so that all those waters may run down to the sea. Now, after Glooskap has worked for one day, he returns to his wigwam to rest. And right before sundown, he sees a thing. He sees a young woman walking towards him, coming along the same path which he himself had traveled. She comes right up to the door of the wigwam and stands there. "What are you doing here?" asks Glooskap. "I am come to help you," says the woman. "I am clever. I am young." Now it is morning, and the sun has come from beneath the earth. Glooskap and this woman are working hard all day, cleaning out the riverbeds so that all the muddy water can run down to the sea. And when they return to the wigwam in the evening, they can see a thing. It is a young man walking towards them over that path they have both traveled. Glooskap speaks to him. "Come in. What are you doing here?" "I have come to help you," says the young man. "I am young. I am clever." Glooskap then says, "Where have you come from?" "I have come from the sky world," says this young man. The next day, all three of them work together, and they clean out the riverbeds, and all that muddy water runs away into the sea. "Now," says Glooskap to the woman, "here we have trees, but no buds, and no leaves, and no flowers. I want you to put leaves on all of the trees. On the hackmatack, fir, spruce, and pine. I want you to put needles. On the other trees, I want leaves. Put burrs on the trees as well. These burrs are filled with seeds, and so there will be young trees. And in all these trees there should be birds, who will sing for you. I have left all my pets, my birds, behind in the sky world," says the woman. "I would be glad if there were some way we could get them." So Glooskap calls Kulu, the great bird. He sends him up to the sky world to fetch the little birds down. All the birds. And each bird brought its song with it from the sky world. These songs filled up the forest with music, and each bird had his own song, from the littlest bird to the biggest bird. Now Glooskap speaks to the young man. "We need animals here," he says. "I will call Kulu," says the man. "I will send him up to the sky world to fetch animals." Now all of the people know that the stars have names, and when that young man sends Kulu up to the sky world, he tells him the names of the star persons that he wants brought back down here to Earth world. Kulu fetches all those stars, and they become animals on the Earth world. But animals were first stars, living up in the sky. The work that this man and this woman had done suited Glooskap. He thinks that they have done well. "I'm going to marry you together," he tells them. "You will live together and have children, and they will have children. Go and make yourselves a wigwam. The man can go out into the forest and hunt animals, the woman can cook them. This is what he told them. And that is how the people know that their grandparents came from the sky world to help Glooscap when the earth world was new. When we say time immemorial, we mean it. That's just a little entry there from Ruth Holmes Whitehead. It's a retelling of an oral history about Glooscap. Which, interestingly enough, sort of an anglicized version of that name has been made into place names around here. Glooscap. But it's just an anglicized version of this Muntu Glooscap. And that's the story of Glooscap. Many great features are said in Nova Scotia, in Mi'kmaq. Many of the great features, including the Bay of Fundy, archipelagos, are all made by Glooscap doing these various things, like what we read about in here, clearing the muddy water and sending them down to the ocean, which is what created the very high muddy tides in Annapolis Valley. Very famous area here that has very low tides, and you can see all the mud banks when the tide goes way out. So that's the story of Glooscap. I do have one more poem I want to read you here. Just hold on. Okay, this is a poem here I want to read you as well. This is from Lindsay Marshall. And then we'll go to the news. Stolen sacred land. A storm will soon sweep across this stolen sacred land they call Canada. A stolen name. Salish to the now extinct Beothuks, greedily divided by Caucasians. From across the briny ocean, from crises in golf courses to salmon in the Miramichi. Low-flying flights in the land of Innu, to displaying our mothers' and fathers' bones in glass boxes. A patience of an eagle who circles, slowly waiting for the right time to devour his prey silently as it lays on the surface, confident, smug, fat, and foolish. Or the fox who seems like he is sleeping, or is he also waiting? These attributes from our brothers we have at the ready, waiting, silent, for now, until... It's from August 16th, 1995. Oh, kitties. It's funny how all these docs are focused on when indigenous Americans came to the continent. Like, if we're digging that far into archaeology, I think you got the answer. The funny thing is, though, every time we tell settlers that native people have been here since time immemorial, they argue it. They argue it. And they say, no, that's impossible. You must have come over the fucking Bering Strait land bridge. And then archaeological evidence, after fucking generations and generations, proves that to be incorrect. It's like, okay, well then you must have come some different way. It's like, no, we're telling you how we got here. We've told you how we got here. We've been here since time immemorial. And when you fucking when your anthropology fucking uncovers that shit, then you can come and apologize to us then. Just like the shit I know I saw someone actually ask this in their thing, Commander Red. I noticed that someone asked one time. They said, yeah, the Salish people on the coast of BC were here long before the Bering Strait formed. Yep. Um, the other common thing I saw someone actually ask it in our Discord was, "What's up with the horses thing?" Right? There's this common narrative about horses being introduced by Europeans, and that actually all the horses in North America prior to Europeans introducing them were hunted to extinction by native people. Which, by the way, many native groups, including anthropologists and scientists, have disputed for a very long time. And now, finally, mainstream science is finally starting to admit that there isn't actually the evidence that they thought there was for this narrative that all of the horses that are here are all descended from European breed and that they were all hunted to extinction beforehand. We have many First Nations, many indigenous groups, many indigenous nations have refuted these claims for a long time. And now, what do you know? Science is uncovering the fact that, yeah, that actually looks like it is the case. That, once again, native people were correct. We didn't hunt the horses to extinction. All the horses that were here weren't here because of fucking Europeans. There was fucking horses. Get a fucking grip. Anyway, so that's our reading for today. I hope you all enjoyed that. Everybody say thank you to Complainie Lainie for giving us that fire read to start today. And if you missed the first parts, I'm going to be uploading our reads onto YouTube. And also, if you would like to catch up for yourself, just type !reading into my chat, and that will give you a link to Lainie's zine here for you to read and catch up. Next Tuesday, we're going to be reading Ramifications for Reproductive Genocide in Gaza for Women and Children, and probably Chapter 4 as well, depending on how long it takes me to read that. Because, sometimes Larry rants. You never know when a Larry rant will happen.